Mr. Carter.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to encourage my colleagues to support S-47, the Natural Resources Management Act. This legislation includes important provisions for public lands across our nation, but specifically for 3 national parks in the state of Georgia. One of those includes my own piece of legislation, a boundary expansion for the Fort Frederica National Monument in the 1st Congressional District of Georgia. Designed by General James Oglethorpe in 1733 on St. Simon's Island, Fort Frederica was built to defend the young colony against attack from the Spanish in Florida. 9 years later, in 1742, General Oglethorpe's design was put to the test. The Spanish invaded the Georgia colony as part of the larger War of Jenkins' Ear, headed directly for Fort Frederica. The Spaniards numbered around 5,000 troops, while General Oglethorpe had fewer than 1,000 regular soldiers. Native Americans and local colonists garrisoned inside the tabby structure. The English detected the Spanish invasion, waded into the marsh, and ambushed the enemy troops in an engagement now called the Battle of Marsh. Consequently, the battle turned back the Spanish and was the last of their offensives in the colony of Georgia. This story, Battle and Fort, is an important moment in Georgia history. Taught to elementary students throughout the state is a marker of our resolve and a turning point that helped to create the state of Georgia that we now know. In passing years, specifically with updates in technology, we increase our knowledge of history through new findings. That is exactly the opportunity we have here with Fort Frederica and why we need this legislation. Studies now show that the land just outside the national park boundary was used as a campground and even a battery that protected the area from warships. This bill adjusts the existing Fort Frederica National Monument to include those locations inside the boundary in an effort to better preserve those locations and continue to learn more about this area and the critical events that unfolded here in the 1st Congressional District of Georgia to create our home state of Georgia. This legislation has been in the works for the last 12 years, beginning when the St. Simon's Land Trust temporarily purchased the additional land in 2007. I want to thank the committee for their work on this, and we're preserving the history for generations to come, and I yield back.
Or less.
Or less.